The final movement of Das Lied von der Erde is the celebrated Abschied, the movement that sums it all up, reconciles it all, brings the symphony in its entirety to a conclusion that in retrospect seems to have been both necessary and inevitable. I want briefly to revisit some observations I made in the previous video regarding the overall structure, both musical and psychological, of the six-movement symphony. Had Mahler chosen to end his Song Symphony with Movement 5, the result would have been a composite work that's a little short by the standards suggested by all his other symphonies, but indisputably a satisfying and completely defensible psychomusical achievement. But Mahler did not stop there. Instead, a tectonic shift propels the whole now into C minor, like the opening of the last movement of the sixth, and a truly vast musical canvas unfurls in its own good time. I'd indicated earlier that Mahler used his large orchestra in extremely discreet ways, often treating its many voices in a chamber music-like manner and never using all those forces in any one movement. Some appear only in a single movement, the tuba in movement 4, for instance, and then only in a single phrase, and the celesta in this movement. Sometimes there seems to be a trade-off. The celesta's brightness at the end of this long movement could be thought to compensate, in a sense, for the complete absence of trumpets herein. The main orchestral singer in this movement is the oboe, as in movement 2, when the same instrument joined forces with the same vocal soloist. Mahler has used 2 poems in this song compared to a single poem for all the others, and that fact, in addition to a postscript all his own that the composer appended at the end, accounts in some measure for the length of this movement compared to the others. That length is also augmented considerably by a broad proportion funeral march that appears between chapters 2 and 4. I'd better explain that, and the explanation will take some time. There are 5 themes used in this movement, and I have identified them with alphabet letters. Theme A imparts a sense of cyclicity, or perhaps rondo, to the whole by introducing each of 3 large chapters. Theme A appears in 2 keys, C minor and A minor, both meaningful in terms of the work's overall tonal topography. The whole movement can be usefully described as follows. Chapter 1, which treats 2 stanzas, opens in C minor with theme A and introduces themes B and C. Theme A is in narrative style, sung over a deep pedal and accompanied by unmeasured birdsong. Theme B is a lyrical C minor theme, but with a powerful impulse toward the parallel major, which is ultimately put down. Theme C is in F major and includes an accompaniment figure that will also return in the final movement of the 9th Symphony. Chapter 1 thus begins in C minor and basically ends in F major, but with an extended modulating section that eventually herds the music into A minor. That is where Chapter 2 begins, again with theme A, now set in the first movement's key. This chapter treats only a single stanza and introduces just one additional theme, theme D, destined to become the most important of all. Here we hear it in B-flat major. When Mahler brings it back in a most personal and intimate postscript, it will be a whole step higher. The theme begins, significantly, with the rising limb of a melodic arch, its first 3 notes, D, F, G, used repeatedly as a springboard to higher landings. Those notes are a transposition of the 8-7-5 motto in retrograde. At their original pitch, the retrograde would be E, G, A. And those 3 notes form the final chord of the symphony, resting on a low C foundation. I can't imagine a more subtle way to tie all the threads together. Chapter 2, like Chapter 1, trails off into troubled waters, this time landing back in C minor for the funeral oration and cortege that constitute Chapter 3. When the last mourners leave the scene empty, the final chapter begins over a low C foundation with the return of theme A, now shorn of its bird song and sounding the way loneliness feels. But this is the chapter that resolves C minor into C major, and it includes the saddest, most umbral theme of all, theme E, heard only once, the darkest hour of night before the dawn. The way out is via the familiar strains of theme C, and it is this theme, dissolving in whole tone ambiguity, that clears the way for Mahler's final word, his own glowing postscript based on a sentiment first expressed in stanza 3 of Movement 1, serene in its F minor sadness there, serene in its C major contentment here. As is usually the case when I prepare to draw the final double bar on a video like this, my mind is roiling with things that I wish I'd said and filled with nagging doubts about whether the things I have said are even the most important things to have said, wondering whether I've shed more light or more heat or just the right balance of the two. I've undoubtedly neglected to mention many significant details, and that's kind of the way it is with Mahler's music, because in that music there's hardly such a thing as an insignificant detail. Perhaps I should say again what I've tried to make clear over the course of my 6 or 7 year long YouTube adventure. I'm just a latecomer to this wonder who's trying to make as much sense of as much of it as he possibly can before his time runs out and he shuffles off this mortal coil. In any event, you're certainly welcome to whatever insights might be buried in all this verbiage, and I can assure you that the past 6 weeks have been a labor of love, and my feelings for this wonderful song symphony have never run deeper than they do right now.